Welcome to the Aidbox meetings. The upcoming hour will be devoted to the updates of Aidbox FHIR platform, and I will be the person who will be mostly speaking about what our team has delivered for the last several months. For those who have no idea what Aidbox is, I will give a brief overview of what we're doing. So basically, we are building a FHIR platform that is built to speed up the development of FHIR first systems and that are supposed to be interoperable by design. The whole platform is divided into separate essential components, and we have an integration toolkit that is used to that is represented by a bunch of converters and adapters that is built to establish inbound integrations. The FHIR platform itself, it is represented by a FHIR database that allows to store FHIR and custom resources. Basically, it's a Postgres. So if you know how to work with Postgres, it's relatively easy for you to start with working with the Aidbox. And on top of Postgres, there is an application that contains a lot of modules that make the whole process of working with FHIR data more efficient. We have a terminology service, a validation engine, an MDM module, transactional and auditing logging. A workflow engine is a relatively new component that I will give an overview today. All the data is under access control, and then Aidbox is really proud of its of providing a granular access to the data using access policy resources. On top of it, there's a really huge set of APIs, FHIR APIs. You definitely know what it is, but alongside with FHIR API, we have GraphQL API and the SQL API. We do not hide data from you, so you may want to interact with the data using SQL. Bulk APIs to do efficient imports and exports, subscription APIs, and there is a spoiler, but we are working on topic-based subscriptions from R5 Archive Restore API, and using Aidbox, you can definitely establish your custom APIs. On top of it, there are separate modules that you might want to use or not. There's a full-blown auth server, Aidbox Forms module that allows to get structured data from users and to work with this data as a FHIR data. We have a component that allows you to import FHIR IGs very easily. So you're just specifying an IG and it starts working. There's a module that allows to pre-aggregate the data in Aidbox to expose it to BI systems and to do data analytics. And we have a certified module, FHIR API module for EHR, ONC certified module. And we have a FHIR infrastructure for health plans, and this is what our customers from the health plans are really enjoying. And we are working on a billing engine, so it's a work in progress, but we will introduce it really soon. The biggest event in the FHIR world of the recent year is definitely FHIR R5. We have supported FHIR R5 structure definitions relatively easy because we are fully metadata-driven, and it took us about several days to bring all these 157 resources to Aidbox, and some of our customers are already playing with it. We have supported mixed forward and reverse chain parameters. Now you can use them to work more efficiently with the FHIR data. And here is the documentation on how to configure Aidbox with FHIR R5. One of the core modules in Aidbox that were recently introduced is called a workflow engine. So basically, it's a module that allows you to establish a reliable and transparent approach and manage asynchronous processes. You might want to automate clinical workflows, or you might want to automate operational workflows. Aidbox workflow engine will allow you to do it. The core components of this task and workflow resources. A task is a very simple building block responsible for performing a specific action. And a workflow is a series of tasks to achieve a specific outcome. What is cool about Aidbox workflow engine that it works with FHIR resources and tasks and workflows custom resources that are available via regular FHIR APIs or any Aidbox specific APIs. To trigger these workflows and tasks, Aidbox provides several mechanisms. They are called services. Basically, these are schedulers and subscriptions services, and you can trigger workflow and task execution via API. To ensure durability, you can configure retries, timeouts, and concurrency when defining a workflow or a task interface. And you can use Aidbox built-in UI to monitor task and workflow execution. And these are very simple examples of workflows that might be built on Aidbox. Once an appointment is created, a subscription triggers workflow execution. There is a specific wait task in Aidbox that waits for a specific date. And once the date or time is here, Aidbox will generate, for example, a depression form and send it to patient via email. So this is again a very basic workflow. And in terms of operational workflows, for example, you might configure a trigger that will import resources from an external bucket to Aidbox daily. Again, that's very easy. And there's documentation that you might find helping you to understand what it is. Any questions on the workflow engine?
Mike, a quick question for you. Yeah, so when I look at these kinds of workflows, typically these are generated by systems outside the operational systems in healthcare. What is the big picture? Is there a move now towards putting some of these workflows inherently within repositories such as the Aidbox repository? And where are people trying to draw the line between applications that do a lot of these kinds of things versus a repository such as Aidbox doing that and supporting the applications and the general workflow?
That's a really good question. The first point I have here is that we are the first users and adopters of what we are building. So we have introduced the workflow engine and we are using it heavily in Aidbox. As for the motivation, Nikolai, could you please give a couple of comments?
First of all, we developed the workflow engine for internal needs, like bulk import, bulk export, and some other asynchronous operations. But then a lot of customers and some of our partners are building up applications which need like long-running processes, like building the claim, getting the response, and all this stuff. So we decided that because it's tightly integrated with the storage, so it may be triggered, it may listen for the new resources, the workflow may be triggered by the resource. So we understand that it would be nice to have it just built in and use the same idea like meta resources. You can define the workflow, you can define the tasks, and then Aidbox will trigger. And some generic tasks can be just very descriptive, so you don't have to write implementation. The Aidbox can do this, like on this event, please send the form. On this event, please export something like this. But as well, we support ability to write external executors or external workers, which can pull for workflows. So the general idea that the simple workflow, like just the chain doesn't work. So, but you may describe the workflow with the code. So this is the very advanced workflow engine. Internally, it produces decide tasks, and you can write any logic how the workflow will move further. So using just the code, like using JavaScript or something like this. Because we found a lot of limitation in solutions like Conductor or simple workflow engine.
Thanks a lot. We have one more question.
My question is, I saw in a previous slide that you had a HL7, a FHIR to HL7 V2 converter feature. We have a lot of integration coming with that will probably use the HL7 V2 protocol. And we've been previously able to do it in the past by developing it the long, tedious, hard way of writing the HL7 code by ourselves. I was wondering if we send our data to the FHIR store, can it be sent to an HL7 automatically? Do we have to schedule something? How do we propagate data using the FHIR as our source of truth?
Do you mean generating HL7 messages and sending them out of Aidbox?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly one of scenarios for Workflow Engine. So potentially it may listen for the new resources and then they create the task to generate HL7. The Aidbox can generate this, or you can do it by your script by listening this task and executing that, and then maybe it'll create a task to send the HL7. Yeah, but yeah, the work on like a pipelines for HL7 in a progress, and it's gonna be definitely tightly integrated with Workflow Engine as well.
Okay, because that's one of the use case we definitely have coming in the near future.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thanks a lot. Let me proceed with the next updates in Aidbox. We have recently introduced an HL7 v2 bottom-up parser that will allow it to integrate Aidbox into your existing transformation pipelines or build your pipelines from scratch. Using Aidbox, what it does, it basically parses an HL7 v2 message represented in a JSON structure that allows you to understand the semantics of the message. And it really makes the whole process of writing and mapping of these HL7 v2 to FHIR much easier. It's a bottom-up approach, so the parser gets maximum information. Even the source message doesn't comply with the spec, and it will highlight the segments that were not parsed, and even an engineer or whoever is responsible for it can really understand what went wrong and debug it. The parsing rules that we have introduced are also available to users, so all of us know that segments that are even not a part of spec, and the parsing rules should be configured from the message to message. We have a demo page, so feel free to play with it. And we have a documentation on the mapping engine available in our documentation. So, and it should be a part of the transformation pipeline and the part of Aidbox transformation framework that Aidbox allows our existing and future customers to build using developer-friendly, effective tools.
Mike, just a quick question. When you say, with HL7 v2, you have, custom defined segments, where you put different types of data in C segments, etc. Once you go through this parser and make those changes, will those mappings be permanent for future ingestion of HL7 v2, or will they have to be done all of the time?
You are configuring the parser for a specific use case. So once you don't edit these parsing rules, they will be stable.
So then you can pass it through, say, for example, through your workflow engine, set up the schedule, and have this particular parsing rules applied to the type of messages.
Yes.
That typically, okay. So you don't have to do it every time. It's just, okay.
Yeah, what's nice about this parser that it do like a half of mapping work. So for the standard segments, you're getting almost FHIR looking JSON. So, and your mapping is just semantic mapping. You can decide that from this message, we are just taking the patient, yes. And from these messages, we're just taking observation because it's laboratory. So we are not updating the patient. So in this parser kind of split this complexity of mapping FHIR, HL7 v2 to FHIR into two pieces. And the first piece we do by default. Yeah, because to be honest, there is a historical relationship between v2 and FHIR. And the FHIR was developed from v2, and the basic segments much kind of map it very well to the FHIR, and that's what this parser provides you out of the box. And you do the rest, just deciding which information pieces you want to take and store.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nikolai.
Thanks a lot, Nikolai. Recently, we have introduced an organization-based access control model to keep your data secure and protected from unauthorized access, even if your data is located within a single database. And this pattern allows to establish organization-based model and to tie the data to a specific organization that this data belongs to. For example, being a user of an organization A, I will be able to read and edit the organization that belongs to my organization. This organization may have a nested organization, and as a parent organization, I can provide to the nested organization read-only access. So we are calling it shared resources. A quick example, as a parent organization, I want to share only with my nested organization the list of practitioners and their schedules. So the nested organizations might read this data, and no other organizations will have access. But basically, it is an approach to establish logical data separations within Aidbox. It's secure, and it allows you not to separate data to different physically separated databases. And as you can see, each organization gets its own URL, again, to ensure the security and protection of the data. It's out of the box in Aidbox. It involves configuration. It will require configuration, but it's not something that is distributed alongside with Aidbox. So it's inside.
We're dealing with this keeping separate organization data between other organizations in the same database. And also we try to always filter using prevent access with the macho engine access policies.
Mm-hmm.
So it will reduce our work effort and
this dramatically will simplify your access policies, because we call it sometimes safe endpoints. So when the people working at the organization prefix, so all the endpoints are safe, so the information never leak to these endpoints. Yes, as well we support like writing into endpoints which belongs to organization, and Aidbox automatically will inject organization ID for that, so you don't have to check it. So the one of the motivation was to simplify the access policies for such a common scenario. Yeah, as you know, with organization, you can model departments and all other stuff, and we support hierarchical models. So organization may be nested into organization, and these rules work top down. And at the root level, you can access all the data.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
So basically, it has to dramatically simplify your separation of the data from an organization to an organization. Cool, let's go further. Aidbox Forms. This is an enhancement to our existing module that allows to capture structured data from users, either patients, practitioners, or whoever, and make this data actionable by extracting FHIR resources from questionnaire responses. We have a solid library that includes more than 30 templates, including vital signs, PHQ-9, and functional status assessment. During recent releases, we have had multiple enhancements on the form builder, and it allows you to build really complex layouts and UI, including data pre-fills or calculations or various logics, depending on the answers of those who submit the forms. So it grows more mature. We have integrated this forms module with Aidbox workflow engine, an example that I've showed you. And we have optimized forms for mobile devices. So right now, either a patient or a provider who gets a form can easily submit it using a mobile device. There's a documentation on Aidbox Forms and form libraries that we have. And again, this is not a standard approach that FHIR allows to do. It's more extendable, though it allows you to work with standard FHIR questionnaire and questionnaire response. For example, if you want to share a questionnaire response with a third party, you can do it in a standard way. If you want to work and extract FHIR resources and to store these FHIR resources to the database and to work with this, that's where Aidbox Forms will help you. Any questions here? Do forms require to be online to work on mobile devices? In other words, can I use forms on mobile device if no connection is available? Add sync info later when it is available. Yeah, that was one of the cases that we have dealt with. Not sure if I got to go deeper, but yes, this is the case. For example, when a practitioner goes to the patient and has no internet access, a practitioner can submit the form, and once the internet connection is again established, we will get the data.
One of the first users of Aidbox Form did exactly that, like the offline application. It requires specific design for the client side, but it is possible. So Aidbox may serve the form with all required information for offline, like terminologies and other stuff, and you can send it later. So when you go online.
Thanks. A C-CDA to FHIR bidirectional converter. It allows you to validate and convert C-CDA R2.1 documents to FHIR R401 resources and back. One of the huge updates here is that now it's available as a storage-less standalone service, so you don't need to employ Aidbox if you want to enhance your existing transformation pipeline with this functionality. And we have added several sections, so now we are fully covering the spec here. So it works as expected. That's what I would say. If you would like to give it a try, you can check our documentation and run it either locally or on our demo page. Are all US CDI elements covered? I'm pretty sure US CDI V1 is definitely covered. What about V2? I'm not sure, but I can double check. Yeah, this is the second version of our converter, and we have done a huge work, and kudos to the team who did it. It took us really much time, and we see that a lot of people in the market are struggling with it, and that's our solution here. Let's go further. Recently, we have introduced some improvements and enhancement to Aidbox Auth server. Basically, it's a built-in server for user authentication and authorization. Supported Azure Active Directory asymmetric authentication, supported ADFS integration, and we have improved documentation and published access policy best practices. The access policy is a very, very flexible and powerful tool. There were some notes and feedbacks that it's not so easy to start working with the access policies. That's why we have published these best practices. And we have also introduced an access policy development tool. It's a UI tab in Aidbox UI that allows you to build access policy much safer by evaluating and understanding what exactly these access policy do, and to manage these access policy during their lifetime to ensure that they are working as expected. All in all, Aidbox Auth server is a full-blown component of Aidbox that allows to work with user and group management. It's an implementation of Auth 2.0, and we are also supporting Smart on FHIR. And using Aidbox as access policy, you can configure different patterns, including role-based access control or even organization-based access control. You might also consider using an external identity provider with Aidbox, but if you want to migrate from Okta or Keycloak or whatever, you might consider using our module because it does not require and involve additional cost for you. Is there a way to see or observe which access policy gave permission request?
First of all, you can turn on the logging and the information which access policy passed, so will be logged. As well, there is debugging tools when you can send example requests and see how the policies was evaluated and which policy allowed the access.
Let's go further. Aidbox terminology, and this is our approach that allows you to distribute and manage FHIR terminologies as pre-expanded value sets. We find it really efficient. In Aidbox, we have enhanced validation performance because now we are validating the data in memory. It doesn't take additional steps to go to the database and check if there's a specific concept in the database to make a decision. Value sets from IGs that Aidbox provides are delivered to Aidbox when importing an IG. Most of you know that the value sets refer the terminologies. So now when you're importing an IG to Aidbox, the concepts are also propagated to the database. And we have supported latest version of bilingual LOINC and SNOMED terminologies, both for English and French. So these are pre-packaged by us terminologies that you may use at no additional cost to charge. And it's very easy because you will have to just specify a specific terminology in your Aidbox configuration project. And this terminology will be taken from Aidbox FHIR terminology repository. But please be aware that you have to get a license from either SNOMED, LOINC, or C-CDA to use these terminologies. Here are the links to FHIR terminology spec that we have introduced, and we are looking forward to getting your feedback on it. Also, you may find a guide on how to create a FHIR terminology repository instance. And once you want to enable an IG in Aidbox, you will find the latter link useful. To ensure the transparency and compliance, Aidbox provides an AuditEvent Viewer. So in the Aidbox UI, you may find a tab that will show all the sensitive events that happened in the system and will allow you to navigate through audit logs, filter data based on specific criteria, and address issues, if any, really promptly and effectively. Here's the documentation on all the AuditEvent Viewer. I just have to mention that it's not a FHIR native audit event. It's a part of our roadmap. The main problem here is that we see there might be some problems if we are storing audit event resources as is, especially if your system is really high loaded. And we want to provide an opportunity either to store the data in audit event in standardized resources, or, for example, to stream these events to any other external systems, for example, to Elastic, thus keeping the flexibility and ensuring that the needs of our customers are met here. So just give it a try, give us your feedback, and we are happy to explore if there are any additional use cases on your side. But definitely we will come to the standard audit events for those who want to use these IG and to ensure that you're using a standardized approach to handle this. Aidbox JS SDK, that's we have recently introduced. It's a brand new SDK that allows you to work with Aidbox, including Aidbox configuration project from your JS stack. It's published on GitHub. What's so cool about it that we can provide sample apps around Aidbox to show you how to do it on JS. And we have published several sample apps that demonstrates how Aidbox workflow engine works, how Aidbox subscription work, and we have also published the PHR personal health record application. It's fully open source. Feel free to play with it. And these are several useful links on the documentation. All in all, we are working on the infrastructure around Aidbox to make Aidbox available within your tech stack.
Yeah. Just a short question. The new SDK is to interact with specifically with the configuration part of Aidbox. It's not to fetch data to the FHIR API, right?
It allows you to do both.
Yeah, the key feature that it can generate classes for TypeScript from a configuration project. Yes, so this is a key feature, but it covers all the communication with Aidbox. It hides some complexity behind subscriptions and workflows. So it's just a full SDK. Yeah. But what's new in this SDK that it is essentially has a generation part, so you can provide your configuration project with custom resources and other stuff, and it will generate the types. So the after completion will start work on the compiler side.
There are almost no two equally configured Aidboxes. So each instance is unique, and this SDK gives you a flexibility to generate the classes using your Aidbox configuration project, depending on how you configure it.
And if you want more samples on the specific topics around Aidbox, please contact us. So we will provide you sample applications for.
Could the SDK be used to perform some sort of DevOps operation on the FHIR store?
Yeah. Just give us an example or a bit more context.
Seed some data, stuff like that. Another example would be to add the federation to your identity provider or so.
It could do this. I'm not sure it's doing now, but yeah, if you can send us as a text, yeah, so you're welcome. So we have the dedicated team for SDK. So guys are looking for the challenges. So we definitely can introduce like importing stuff and pre-configuring Aidbox through SDK. As well, you can create an issue on a GitHub. Yes, so there is a link on the GitHub project, so you can easily create an issue for example project or for SDK and missed features.
Yeah, that's what I will be talking right now. So we are moving to one of the most important slides here. So what are the next steps for all of us? So to get most of the Aidbox FHIR++ capabilities. So once we share these presentation and related materials, so please make sure that you check the documentation and samples and talk to us about your use cases. If you have support chats or other established communication channel with our teams, please reach out to us. If you don't have any established channels, you can always come to our Aidbox user chat that we are carefully monitoring and talking to our users because it's very important for us. Or you can just drop us an email or raise an issue on Aidbox GitHub issue tracker. And let's make them real with Aidbox. We have some time left, and if you have any questions, please feel free to start. Vikram, please go ahead.
I wanted to know if you would be extending the B10 certification for Aidbox, or it's not planned yet.
I would say that we are lucky because Maria is here, and she can give us an update. It's a kind of a spoiler here, but Maria, can you hear me?
So we just working on it, and probably we need 1 month, and we will get to this certification.
Okay, great. So just the follow-up question to that. So would just it be provided along with the G10 and B10 would be a single solution, or we need a separate license and setup for that? I think most of it can be already done with the current modules.
I think it will be built into Aidbox.
Okay, that's really good to know.
Great. Stephen has raised hand, so please go ahead.
Mike, I have 2 questions. One is related to your forms slide. And so you had all of these different types of forms. When people fill in these forms and it's pushed into Aidbox, is it stored based on established resources, or are these forms stored in the back end using custom resources that are not standard FHIR resources?
These are FHIR resources, so we are extracting FHIR resources from the question here.
I can answer more details. Yes. So,
and maybe before you answer that, Nikolai, what if the form contains information that are targeted towards multiple resources?
So that essentially this is implementation of what's in FHIR called structured data capturing. Yes. So the intermediate storage now is stored as a custom resources for each forms. That's done by design because it may simplify the analytics and report queries on top of forms. When the form is finished, so there is an extraction step in the forms. When the content is extracted from the form document and put it into the FHIR resources. As well, the forms support like what we call pre-filling. So essentially the life cycle of the form is you launching the form at that moment, the pre-filling may become, so for example, you can load the last observation and pre-fill it, or the other stuff, yes, like a list of allergies stuff like this. When you're finishing the form, the original form content will be stored as a custom resource, but the data may be extracted into different FHIR resources. Usually it's a bundle of FHIR resources, and we provide like configuration language how to describe this extraction. Yeah. And as well, the smooth integration with the questionnaire framework, so the form can be translated to the questionnaire response. If you want to distribute the form result as a questionnaire response, so you may just transform the form document into questionnaire and store it as a questionnaire response.
And my second question was related to when you talked about the audit service, and you talked about the fact that, the audit data can grow a whole lot, and you don't want that to be part of your operational box, which might, create problems with storage, performance, etc. And therefore you said, you could have it streamed to Elastic and other things. My question is related to your whole architecture where you have different types of services. What is your approach from an architecture perspective to scale different types of components and maybe even distribute those components into different infrastructure components as opposed to be part of a single server? Is there any guidance around that? Or are all of the services meant to be part of one box, one infrastructure, one virtual machine, etc.?
Mm-hmm. So
how do you expand horizontally?
Essentially, internally, we prefer to keep at least the code base together, and we provide ability to run multiple instances of Aidboxes. So if some services are heavy, so only one instance may work on this service, like let's say the workflow engine, there's specific workers inside, and they may be located on a specific instance. They are working, and one of instance will run this service. In terms of Audit Viewer, that's exactly what stopped us to announce it as a complete feature, because we understand there's a lot of audits, and they trade off to write them into the Postgres, because you don't want to load the Postgres with this stuff. You may store it in Elastic, and you need so we provide like archiving API. For example, if it's stored in a Postgres, you can archive month by month data and offload them into S3. But we're still thinking about like loaded, in case of loaded solution, probably this approach storing data in Postgres will not work, and we will create an adapter to store it in Elastic or storages like this. I don't know, maybe Grafana solution. So for the audit logging, for now, it's for the small and the middle-sized application. That's nice to have it right here. So it will work. And when we create the adapter for external storages of the logs, so then we will probably update our user interface to work with Elastic or other log engines as a backup instead of doing this in a Postgres.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot. We are almost out of the time. I just wanted to mention that I'm really excited to see all of you here, and kudos to the team that make it happen, and kudos to our customers who make us move further with Aidbox. So thanks a lot for visiting. Once again, once you come across the materials that we have shared, please reach out to us, talk to us about your use cases, and we are happy to move further. Thanks a lot.